Greetings and salutations, and welcome to a more so how to introductory to team building for metagame, for the VGC metagame. Now, there's a lot of things to consider. Before I get into the nitty gritty of like effort values and so on and so forth. Okay. Before I get into the effort values and so on and so forth, I haven't played this in a while. You can tell because I'm making it. No, not that. I want to connect to the internet. You have to think about team formation, right? And I don't just mean like what Pokemon to put on the team, but more so what role are they going to take, okay? And there are quite a few primary roles that can be per se used, right? You have what are called walls, pretty standard. They wall off the opponent. They try to prevent the opponent from doing damage effectively. And by either preventing, I mean just slowing it down. They're there to soak up the power points of the opponent. They're there to also induce certain status ailments, set up entry hazards like Stealth Rock, so on and so forth. These walls are meant to be sturdy. They're meant to just be a menace to the opponent. Sweepers, which are pretty much your, you know, be all end all end to the game. Like, you want your sweepers to effectively win you the game by just crushing the opponent with damage, potentially doing one hit KOs, potentially doing two hit KOs, etc. They are usually specialized attack and special attack, just like the walls are defense and special defense, respectively. Then you have some of the oddball sort of roles, like a hazer. Now, a hazer, unlike, college fraternity, where it's like, hazing, haze is an ability that says whenever you use it, it gets rid of all stat increases. Now, when you get rid of stat increases, things like agility giving you plus to speed, swords dance giving you plus to attack. Trying to think if there's one that nasty plot that gives you 2 stages of special attack, so on and so forth. When you use haze, it eliminates stat changes for both sides. Now you have other things that are pseudo hazers. They usually call them phasers because it's pseudo hazer. So P for pseudo, H for hazer, so they call them phasers. Pseudo hazers are something along the lines of, who was it? Torkoal kind of fits that bill because it can use clear smog, not clear smog. Yeah, I think it's called clear smog. I believe that's the ability. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is the reason I went with this one is because this one has pretty much all of my EV train stuff on here, but it also has the majority of everything on here as well. So, let's see if I can go singles. I do believe I have a Torkoal. Is he in my doubles? He is. Yeah, Clear Smog. That's the ability. So you'll see, when you go to his stats page, he has defense for 379, special defense. His ability, we'll get into that in a minute. He is a wall. He is a defensive wall. His whole job is to take physical hits and survive to a degree. His other job is to do things like Lava Plume to potentially burn the opponent so that they do less physical damage. Clear Smog. All stats changes are eliminated, and I believe that's all stats changes on the opponent. It does not affect you. I'm pretty sure Clear Smog is just on the opponent. It does damage and it deletes their status changes. So if somebody sets up a thing where they're getting plus 2 speed by using agility, or they use, what was that one move? Skeledirge has it. It's funny that I can remember Skeledirge's name, but I can't remember the Torch Song. That's the name of it. Does damage and increases special attack guaranteed. Or Charge Beam has a chance to increase special attack. A high chance, but it still has a chance. You can Clear Smog those stats away. So he plays 2 roles, right? He's there not to set up entry hazards, but he's there to potentially delete stats, and he's there to defend. This is the other one that's doing 2 roles, which is Feretris. And he has, as you can see, Stealth Rock and Spikes. This is to set up entry hazards. This is the other type of job that a wall can do. Now you can have other Pokemon do this job in addition to setting up other things. And they're more of a support role. So you have your walls, your sweepers, your hazers, phasers, that kind of thing that can remove stats. Then you have support things. Entry hazards, helping hand, substitute, baton pass, that kind of thing. Those are support. And then outside of that, you have things that set up the arena. Kind of like... Not him. That's more of a troll thing. Like, Sableye is more of a troll, because if you take a look at what he can do, Prankster gives him priority, but we'll get to the abilities again in a second. He can then swap things, skill swap. He can prevent people from moving. He has Metal Burst to reflect damage, and so on and so forth. You have certain troll type things, but this one right here is what I'm talking about. He's more of a special defense wall, and he has Trick Room, which changes the whole speed order, and it allows slower people to go first, slower Pokemon to have an attack first. That being the case, we're going to get into the stats. Obviously, as you know, you have 6 stats: HP, attack, special attack, defense, special defense, and speed. Generally, speed wins games. The higher your speed, the more you are able to get ahead of your opponent, because you get to strike first, and that potential of striking first, you can get the one-hit kill, you can set up something, you can get out ahead of them in a way. In some cases, you can use Taunt and even prevent them from using entry hazards. So there's that potential as well. So speed generally wins, but that's where Trick Room comes into play, and it flips the turn order all the way around, unless that says they have a move priority. For example, I believe Shell Sidearm says it has turn priority. Classic. No, it does not have turn priority, but Quick Draw gives him turn priority, as well as the Quick Claw he's holding has a chance to give him turn priority. There are certain things that do have turn priority, if I can find it. Wherever it is. Protect, for example, has turn priority. It's not the greatest example of turn priority, but it's there. Endure has turn priority. I'm trying to find other ones, because I know there's more. It's Quick Attack. There we go. Quick Attack has turn priority. There's also Fake Out, which has turn priority as well. But you get the idea, right? Right there's Fake Out. Fake Out has turn priority, but can only be used on the first turn of the first move. So if you were to take a look at Sneasler here, oops, and you were to take a look at, no, cancel. You go to his moves, and then we go here. Hits first on the first turn and makes the opponent flinch. So anything that has turn priority kind of ignores Trick Room. So there's that layer of strategy to add to it. Now, we're going to talk about things like abilities. Abilities such as Pressure. Whenever the opponent makes a move against you, it consumes twice the amount of power points. Now, when you use twice the amount of power points, those are the power points you have. Like, that's all you get. I mean, you can increase them with, PP up or PP max for PowerPoint up or PowerPoint max. You can increase those to a higher stat threshold, to a higher number threshold. But even then, you're using 2, whereas the opponent is using 1. So the abilities like Pressure help you drain the opponent's your resources faster. And that is a potential win strategy. That has happened in the past. They run out of moves that they can use, and then they use what's called Struggle. Struggle does damage to themselves. It's got a heavy recoil. It does a fair amount of damage, but it has heavy recoil. But you have things like Volt Absorb. Now, you're probably thinking, what good is Volt Absorb on an electric type? Nobody's going to hit an electric type with an electric attack. You're right. You're right. They're not going to. 100% they're going to avoid hitting it with an electric attack. But if you had, say, I don't know, Vaporeon out there who's a water type, they're going to want to hit it with an electric attack because it's super effective. So you swap, and you throw in Pachirisu. So now what you have is he takes the Volt Absorb, and he gets health back. I believe that's what it does, is health. Yep. HP restored. So if he's taken damage before, and you don't want him to die, and you're like, wait, they're going to hit me with an electric attack because I either have a flyer or a water type, you can swap out, throw him in there, he Volt Absorbs, gets the HP back, and now that he's in there, he can encore them into attacking the same thing again, using the same ability. He could use Follow Me, which, if you think in double battles, right? If he's sitting next to a water type and you're like, oh, well, they're going to use Thunderbolt on that water type, Follow Me. You use Follow Me, Thunderbolt then targets Pachirisu. Follow Me, I believe, also has priority. Not 100% on that, but I believe it does. So the point about making a team is getting to having a comprehensive team of 6, of which you get to choose 3 in the competitive meta scene. Generally, most people in the competitive meta scene don't try to set up both, like a hazer and a sweeper and a wall. Generally, they'll have one that goes out there and it has a status inducer. Like, he's full of heavy status inducing effects. I think I have one of those kicking around here somewhere. I'll have to keep checking. Pretty sure I had one that had a status that it was set out for status induction. Was it my Arbok? No. I had one of them set up for it, but anyway. Status induction is you send somebody out. Oh, I know who it was. He's over here in my single seam, I think. There he is. Will-O-Wisp. To burn people. Discharge can potentially paralyze. But he's just there for that whole purpose of having the ability to induce those statuses on the opponent. And this is after he tricks them with, like, Sticky Barb. So he tricks them with Sticky Barb, or he allows them to hit him and they take Sticky Barb. It's kind of interesting because he could take stuff away and take away their item with Trick. But his ability Levitate means he's immune to ground attacks and anything that is ground based. So that's a powerful ability, but you'll generally see in the take 6, pick 3 formation, they'll take somebody that's a status inducer, and generally they'll take 2 sweepers. And in double battles, it's take 6, pick 4. So double battles, yeah, you have to worry about 2 opponents that are on the same side attacking, but you also have to worry about being able to fill as many roles as possible in a limited space. Now, with Pokemon Champions coming out in a month or so, yeah, it's just over a month, what you're going to have people maybe playing take 6, pick 6, both doubles and singles, which wouldn't be a bad thing, because if that was the case and you take all 6, you can then really have a cohesive strategy set up that you lead out with a status inducer or a entry hazard creator. But then you take a look at the opponent's team and the opponent sees your team, and then it comes down to there's that little bit of gamesmanship. You know, are you going to lead out with an entry hazard producer like Forretress? Or are they going to lead out with somebody that has taunt like Crobat? Crobat's a very fast taunt user, then you can't use your entry hazards. So it's, on one side there's the potential that it can work, and on the other side you have the potential that you can get outpaced because they outplanned you. So there is that little bit of gamesmanship that occurs in Pokemon. Now, there's a lot of strategies to it. For example, things like Pincurchin here, or my personal favorite, which was Pyukumuku. Pyukumuku could poison the opponent and then consume statuses off of your allies to heal himself. But then he could use what was called Pain Split. I believe I have one with Pain Split somewhere. There it is. Now, Pain Split, how it works, as you can see here, it adds your HP to the target's HP and then divides equally by 2. So my Swalot here has 333 HP. If I was to Pain Split, say, this Clefairy, it would be 656 HP divided by 2. Or if they hit the Clefairy and he's down to 100 HP, it would be 433 divided by 2, and then Clefairy would get healed, Swalot would get injured. Pyukumuku was taking that to a whole nother level. It was you Pain Split and then you share the HP, and then he uses the ability to devour statuses to status inductions like paralysis, sleep, poison, burn off of your ally, and he would heal himself and then he would Pain Split again. And he would also have Helping Hand, which increases the amount of damage they do. So now that we've got the premise of team formation down, and what you would want to take, it's time to talk about strategy within the actual Pokemon itself. If you're making a sweeper like Magmortar here, you'll notice, I don't even know if I have this guy, I do not have him EV trained, but you'll notice 3 separate types of attacks. Yes, he's a fire type, but if you look up above, you'll see Lava Plume, Psychic, Scorching Sands. You want what's called type coverage. Yeah, he's a fire type. He can be super effectively hit by water, rock, ground. Thing is all 3 of those are generally slower than Magmortar. Back to the whole speed is key thing. Speed being a key factor in fights. He can generally get a hit on those, and because most ground and rock types don't have a very high special defense, and he's more of a special sweeper, he can be a potential threat on board to deal with the opponent. So giving him things like Scorching Sands, which is super effective versus rock, it's also super effective against steel, and super effective against fire. So otherwise a fire type could come in and say, oh, you can't touch him because he has, he's got all fire types. So you want to have a broad type coverage to try to cover all of your weaknesses. But you'll also notice he has Taunt. Now this is how I just got him, because I got him from, Crystal Cavern. I got him and he had Taunt. So would I generally use Taunt on a Magmortar? No. Magmortar is generally not fast enough to be an effective Taunt user. In cases like Magmortar, you're going to want them to have generally 4 sweeping maneuvers. As much type coverage as possible, and you want him to nuke as hard as possible, because that's his job. Now, things like this Sceptile, this gets a little more nuanced with sweepers. You'll notice that his stats are split differently. His effort values are also split differently. They're split into attack and special attack. This is what's called a mixed sweeper. A mixed sweeper's job is to be that kind of like a switch hitter in baseball, right? You throw out the mixed sweeper, and if it's an opponent that has a low physical defense like Blissey, you have tools to deal with it with Drain Punch, with Acrobatics. If it's an opponent with a low special defense, like Avalugg, you have something that you can deal with it, like Giga Drain. And you have the stats to help you with that. Now, why does this work? Endure, we'll just take a look at the moves here. Endure leaves them with 1 HP. So it doesn't matter, you could be fighting in 2 fights, the double battles, right? You use Endure. Both Pokemon could dogpile on Sceptile, right? And they can use multi-hit moves. Let's say Cloyster uses Icicle Spear, and let's say, I can't even think of another person, but they use a multi-hit mover, like say Maushold. Maushold uses Population Bomb and gets a 10 hit. It won't matter. Endure guarantees 1 HP. You cannot go under 1 HP. It will take you all the way down there, and it will hard lock you there for that turn. Period. This is where Endure is slightly better than Sturdy. Sturdy, the ability, says it takes you down to 1 HP if you were at full health. If you were full health and you go all the way down, it prevents you from being one-hit KO'd. That's fair. This is better than Sturdy for that reason. But this is the genius of this design. You Endure, once he's gotten to that low level of HP, he automatically consumes the Lychee Berry, which increases his attack stat. And if you notice, his attack stat is actually the lower of the two. So with his attack stat being the lower of the two, this increases the attack stat. By doing so, it also makes his ability Unburden activate, which doubles his speed. So now his speed becomes 552. So he can outrun most everything at this point. And then as you come back over here, Giga Drain drains the HP and you get half of it. Drain Punch drains the HP and you get half of it. Acrobatics does twice the amount of damage if you're not holding an item. You just consumed your berry, which gave you Unburden. Acrobatics also gives him grass coverage and bug type coverage. But this is a very nuanced thing. It's like Sceptile is a very nuanced Pokemon for that reason. Most sweepers are straightforward, right? Like, there you go. This one's a pretty straightforward thing. Special attack, special defense. He's kind of a bulky sweeper, and those do exist. You do have bulky sweepers that exist. You also have very frail sweepers that exist. But this one, as you can see, it's just, they're all attacks. All 4. Pollen Puff can do double duty because if you use Pollen Puff on an ally, it restores health instead. So, it's a flexible move. You want moves like that on your team. Into more detailed stuff. Held items, like Bright Powder, reduces the chance that you're struck. Safety Goggles prevent entry hazards. Each one has its own idea of what it should be, right? Like, it's got its niche for what it's meant for. Now, there's a lot of moves out there. There's a lot of held items out there that aren't that good. There's a lot of moves out there that aren't that good. But things like Assault Vest. If you have all 4 attacks, Discharge, Acid Spray, Chilling Water, and Parabolic Charge, your special defense is basically doubled. Nearly doubled. It's up by 50%. Which would make his special defense a little over 300. Which is astronomical, given the fact that his defense is 294. And Discharge paralyzes, Parabolic Charge gets health back, and Acid Spray lowers their special defense. So not only does it do damage, but it lowers the stat, which makes the rest of his stuff hit harder. Except for that one also lowers his attack. Lowers their attack, sorry. So you can lower their special defense or their attack. It makes him a very flexible wall. So the held item is what really equips that and makes that move forward to make him into that. Now, as we were talking about certain in-depth strategies, everybody knows about, like, electric is weak to ground, and it's weak to, I think it's just weak to ground. Pretty sure it's just ground. Even with it being weak to ground, you have a few extra strategies that do come into play. You have things like terastallization. You'll notice Magmortar here says fire, and then right next to it says poison. When you terastallize, your type changes. Now, where this matters is, let's say you are, say, Bellabolt or Magmortar here, and you're looking at an opponent who's led out with a water type, and you know they're going to hit you with a water type maneuver, perhaps Aqua Jet, which has move priority. In order to get out ahead of that, you can terastallize into a different type, which where water is no longer super effective, right? So when you terastallize, that takes precedence in move priority over moves, because that means you're setting up something to do it. So you're setting up to terastallize to become a different type for a maneuver. But some people play it defensively. They terastallize just as a defensive mechanism so that they're not being absolutely demolished by maneuvers. Now, that's not always going to work, but sometimes it does. Things like, this is one of the ones that I like. You'll notice that it's a ghost type, but it has the normal terastallization. There are two types in the game. Normal hits for neutral across everything except rock and steel, which hits for less damage. So normal type maneuvers will hit for 100% damage, except for against rock or steel, at which point they'll hit for 50% less. Curse works differently on ghosts than it does on normal types. Let me put it back there. Now you see his defenses. 151 defense, 182 special defense. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Quiz, he could evolve. He could become Dusknoir. True, he could. But if he did, he wouldn't be as good. Because he's holding Eviolite, this held item. The held item that boosts defense and special defense when held by a Pokemon that can still evolve. So Dusclops gets the benefit of Eviolite. Eviolite makes his defenses increase by 50%. So if you take a look, his special defense is 182 plus 50%, which is 91. You're looking at 273 defense, or special defense. For the defense, you're looking at, what, 151, and then another 50% of that is 76, 75. So you're looking at 226, which isn't bad. But then you take a look at his moveset. If you're a ghost and you use Curse, it takes half your life and it applies a curse that eats a quarter of their life per turn. But you sacrifice half of your life to do it. Any other person, any other Pokemon using Curse, it lowers their speed by 1 stage and increases their attack and defense by 1 stage. This is the exact set that they used to have called Curselax. It used to be on a Snorlax, who is a special defensive wall. And you'd go in and you'd use Curse 3, 4, 5 times in a row. You'd rest, you'd get healed, you'd wake up, and then you'd start doling out damage because you have a ton of defense, you have a ton of special defense, and now you have a ton of attack. So this is Curselax, but on a Dusclops. Only really works with Terastallization, which will still be available in Pokemon Champions, so there's nothing to worry about there. But having that extra nuance of strategy, like with my Mudsdale here, which is a shiny Mudsdale, but we're going to get into that. My Mudsdale here fits the bill of that extra layer of strategy. And I'll get to that in just 2 seconds. Weather effects, because I have to talk about that before I talk about the strategy here. Weather effects do different things, which is, again, this is all the layers of strategy that exist in the game. Weather effects, like snowstorm, which I think they call it a snowstorm now. It's not called hail anymore. It's called starts to snow, I think it says. Yeah. It starts to snow. So, what that does is that increases the defense value of anybody that's an ice type by 50%. Fair. Not bad. Not a bad defense boost for ice types. Other than that, it doesn't do damage anymore. At least I don't think it does. Because they used to say they were buffeted by the hail, which functioned almost identically as Sandstorm. Sandstorm gives special defense to ground and rock types. And I believe steel types also get a benefit from that. It also does damage to everything but rock, ground, and steel. Ice used to do the same thing. It would say, or not ice, but hailstorm used to do the same thing. It would say does damage to everything except ice types. But they've removed that, and now it's just a snowstorm that increases defense of ice types. Also allows certain things like blizzard to hit 100% of the time. Those weather effects affect all Pokemon on the board. So if the opponent's running an ice type and you set up a snow warning and it starts to snow, they now have a 50% boost to their defense. So it has drawbacks. So there's that layer of strategy. This Mudsdale, as you can see, has an ice terrestrialization type. So he would terrestrialize into ice type. He's wearing an assault vest, which gives him special defense bonus. And as you can see, his defense, his special defense, and his HP are massive. And I've trained the defense, and I've trained it a little bit like that. The whole idea is to increase your defense using his ability Stamina. Whenever he gets hit, you get an extra boost to Stamina. Now, I would partner him with something like, I believe it was Minicio? Or, no. There was somebody that had a multi-hit move that I would use against him. My own Pokemon would attack my own Pokemon. Might have been Minicio. There's somebody that had Tail Slap. Let me go back and find it. I know I have it. I don't know where it is. Anyway, I would end up hitting my own Pokemon 5 times to increase his defensive stats higher and higher and higher, right? And by increasing his stats in that manner, I mean, you could do it technically with Mousehold. But when you increase his defense stats via Stamina, it makes it so that he hits harder with Body Press. As you can see there, the user attacks by slamming the body into the target. The higher the user's defense stat, the greater the damage this move deals. So, with 5 boosts of Stamina, it increases his defense to an astronomical level. But there's one further. You terrestrialize him and put him on an ice team, and now he has the snow, which gives him even more defense. He's almost impossible to kill on the physical side. And I know what you're thinking. Again, you're thinking Quiz. What about the special side? You know, if he's almost impossible to kill on the physical side, what's going to stop somebody from bringing in a special attacker and just demolishing him? Quite simply, I trained him in special defense. Just enough to give him just enough HP so that he could, or just enough special defense so that he could defend against special hits. Because he gets extra 50%. So now his baseline special defense is 316. All of this stuff is applicable as a strategy. But now it's time to talk about what are effort values and what are individual values. Well, individual values, as I'm going to head out to someplace. I don't know if I can. Hold on, I have to land. I have to land to see where I'm going. Alright. Shouldn't be too far away. Yep, it's right down here. Down in the secluded beach. I could just fly there. I'll just fly there. And fast travel. Individual values in your stats range from 0 to 31. Now, 0 to 31 doesn't sound like awful much, but when you figure that it's the difference between essentially amazing and absolute dog water, then it is a massive difference. Is that a shiny Corvus Choir? I don't think it is. No, it's not. But every Pokemon has different individual values. So it doesn't matter what you run into, everything is going to have a separate individual value. Like, it's just a random series of integers that range from 0 to 31, like I said. And being able to find out what they are is a lot harder than, you know, seeing it here. You actually have to go talk to... There's a guy, I think the Hyper Trainer can potentially tell you. I think there is somebody that can tell you what the individual values are. Now, as for effort values are very malleable, in the sense that every single thing you defeat has an effort value to it. And he looks different. I stand corrected. And he's worth like 2 effort values, by the way. I could be wrong. He might be worth 1 attack. So he's worth attack effort values, and so is the Flamigo over there. They're both worth basically attack effort values. Now, how do effort values work? Well, this Colossal is not meant to be trained in that regard. He's just here to smash things. That's why his effort values look like they do. As you can see from the pie wedge thing over there in the upper right hand. Effort values, you get 510 across your entire Pokemon. Your one Pokemon can have 510 effort values put in any combination you want. Generally, though, people like to put 252 into a stat that they want to maximize. Especially if you're going to be somebody who's speedy, you're going to want 252 speed. Or if you have a lot of attack, you're going to want 252 attack. Reason being, you want to specialize in it and kind of hyper specialize in it. Now, of the 510, they'll try to tell you that, you know, you get 506, I think it was. No, it's 252 and 252. That's 504. And they'll try to tell you that you get, like, an additional 4. What you don't, you get an additional 6, it's 510. The reason why they say it's an additional 4 is solely because every Pokemon stat has to be divisible by 4 to get a bonus in those stats. So for every 4 effort values you get in a stat, that according stat goes up by, I believe, 1. So everything divisible by 4. So I think it's 1 or 2. I can't remember exactly. But it goes up by an amount for every 4 effort values you get. And with that being the case, 252 is divisible by 4. But 10 is not really equally divisible by 4. So now you have that whole, do you want to have it be, you know, do you want to put points here, points there? It's all up to you. But you come out here to basically EV train. And you can find specific areas to EV train in. Now, there's a quicker way of going about doing it, which is where you buy the vitamins. Oops, just ran into that. I believe they're worth special defense. 1 special defense, maybe 1 HP. Give me 2 seconds here so I can get up over here where I need to be. Okay, now there's other ways to go about doing this. There are power items, which we'll get to those in a second here, and I can show you. The power items are right here. Power bracer, belt, lens, band, anklet, and weight. They give you +8 in any specific stat that they're corresponding with. So power bracer gives you movement speed. Okay? Or sorry, it doesn't give you movement speed, it gives you attack. I stand corrected. Power anklet gives you speed. Power bracer gives you attack. So the previous Flamigo that I fought that had, I think, 2, I believe it gives you 2 attack effort values. With the power bracer equipped, you will get 10. Now to get to 252, you only have to defeat 25 of them with an extra 2 more, and then there you go. Easy, easy cheese. It's like fall off a log easy, right? So this allows you to EV train even quicker. To EV train the quickest, though, vitamins are now allowed. And the vitamins give you 10 into, I believe they're at Mana Nevera. Vitamins give you 10 into 1 effort value, which means you have to jam at least 25 into a Pokemon to get it near to max, 26 if you wanted it maximized. And once you have all 26 in there and you are at max stat, you can now no longer put a vitamin in them. You can no longer feed them the vitamin. And you can buy your vitamins up here at Mana Nevera. HP up, protein, iron, calcium, zinc, carbos. They're not cheap, but it's a quick way to EV train. If you want to specialize your EV training that way. So we've covered IVs, we've covered EVs. There are a few things that we have not covered yet. One of them is Pokemon breeding. Now, it's not as important as it used to be. There used to be a way to get... That used to be the way to get certain moves on other Pokemon, is you would go through what's called a breeding chain. And that egg chain was this move, which the males have the moves, the females dictate what you hatch. So, if you put a, say, female... Like, let's say you put a Nidoqueen in there with something that, like a Nidoking that has a move that you want the Nidoqueen to have. You will hatch Nidoran, either male or female, with the move. Kind of a bad example because they're both Nidoran. There's one. Let's say you put a female Electabuzz in there with a male Magmar, and the male Magmar has Fire Punch. Because let's say you don't have the TM for Fire Punch, so your male Magmar has Fire Punch. You will now hatch Elekid's with Fire Punch. Because Fire Punch is learnable, I believe, through Egg Move to Electabuzz, but you will guarantee to have Elekid's because that's the female. Female dictates the species, male helps pass on the moves. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what if it's a female-only Pokemon, like Chansey or Blissey? And you want this one to teach that one because that one's better stats or different stat spread. That's not a problem. They've actually solved that in the recent metagame. There's an item, it's a held item, and it's down here. It's called Mirror Herb. It's right here somewhere. I saw it. Maybe it's further down. Nope. Where'd it go? There it is. So, instead of using it for what it says here on the right-hand side, scratch that. You take the mirror herb, and you make the one, I believe it's you make the one that wants to learn the move, hold it, and have an empty move slot. And then you put the one that has the move you want it to learn in the same daycare, or up there at the same campground, and then you just wait. And the one will teach the other the move, if they're the same gender, because the mirror herb allows them to mirror the move, and it allows them to learn it that way. That's what they did to solve that problem. So they've really streamlined the whole egg chain, egg breeding. Now when it comes to actually breeding for IVs, which you can do, you need, as soon as I can find it here, you need an Eviolite, or you need a Everstone if you want to breed for specific things like Quagsire instead of Clodsire. So Everstone, you'd have to have one of the Gen 2 Quagmire or Quagsires, and you have it hold the Everstone, and you will hatch blue Whoopers. And that's one way to get those. Outside of that, you need one, and I already know who's got it. Never mind, I'll check my Pokemon boxes. I already know who has it, because I never take it off of him. There he is. Or there it is, I should say. It is a Ditto. Yes, this was made, probably manufactured by some person who hacked it into the game. I got it through a Wonder Trade. Not that it matters, because I only use it to breed. I don't ever actually use it in competition. I use it as a breeding ground. And as you can see, it's holding a Destiny Knot. Without the Destiny Knot, you will only get a maximum, I believe, of 2 or 3 individual values. That's it. And it's rare to get those. With the Destiny Knot, you could get up to 6. That's much better. But it's not a guarantee. Most of the time you'll end up with 5s. And I believe it's back here, and you do get a checker eventually. There it is. There's your individual value checker, where it says best. If it says best, that means it's 31 individual values. And as you can see, I get a lot of 5s. Very rarely will I get a 6. Fantastic, I believe, is up to 30 individual values. Decent is like middle of the road. Pretty good, I think pretty good is better than decent. And then I think it goes lower than that. But anyhow, you can see there what I'm talking about. These are the effort values. Or not the effort values, the individual values. And that's pretty much what it's there for, right? So you can breed a Ditto with one of these, and it will pop out more Totodiles that could potentially be even better. They could be 6 IV. There's got to be one other thing I had to think of, but it's not coming to me right now. Outside of the IV breeding and the EV training, it pretty much becomes, you find the party formation you want and you start building toward it and hope that it works out. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that if it doesn't work out, you can't do anything about it. You certainly can. You can change your party formation around if you have something else available. If you have another Pokemon waiting in the wings, so to speak, you can totally switch out party members. Maybe not in an actual tournament, but you could switch out party members to better suit your needs. So if you need more defense, you can throw another defender on it. If you need more offense, you can throw more offense on it. But it really boils down to 3 key strategic points. Team formation. individual formation, meaning how good's the move pool? Do you have a wide coverage area? So on and so forth. And then I would say the third most important thing is knowing what your opponent can do. Now, your opponent can obviously hit you with some strange looks and hit you with stuff that you haven't seen before. I'm notorious for that. But they can still do it, right? The potential is still there. The type doesn't really matter all that much. Yes, it plays into it, but with the way terrestrialization works, and with the way of things like Dynamax, and with the way of things of... Because going into Pokemon Champions, you're going to have access to the Z moves, to the Dynamax, to Mega Evolutions, to terrestrialization. Having all of that at your disposal, and being able to pick and choose what you want each one to do, is going to create a much deeper, I would say, metagame than it has in previous generations. Being able to put terrestrialization against Mega Evolutions. Mega Evolutions are strong in their own right. Terrestrialization is kind of more of a counterplay mechanism. It's less snowball, but more counterplay. Mega Evolution was very similar to that in the fact that it was more counterplay and it wasn't as snowball-y as, say, like Dynamax. Dynamax and the Z moves were kind of, you set up for something and then the game just snowballs after that. Being able to have the terrestrialization, being able to have that next to Mega Evolutions does make you have to take a step back and now take a look at the opponent and see what they can hit you with, right? And have to take a look at new possibilities that could come into play. So those three things I would say are the most important. Team formation, individual formation about what you have for maneuvers, and then basically strategizing around your opponent. Being just knowledge, overall knowledge of what Pokemon can do, what their move pools are, and what to expect. That's in the knowledge department. If you have at least two of those three things, you could go far doing it. And it's not hard to EV train, it's not hard to IV breed. It really isn't. I mean, they've streamlined it so much from the early years that it's quite an easy feat to do. And this has been my how to get into competitive battling. Now, I totally recommend anybody that has never done it to try to do it, right? Definitely build a team. You could start with what you like the Pokemon you like. And then start thinking, okay, things like Kingambit here with the Supreme Overlord, right? Let's say one of your favorite Pokemon is not Kingambit, but one of your favorite Pokemon is all about having themselves be sacrificed either through Memento, Explosion. There's another one where they sacrifice themselves, and I believe the next opponent gets healed. I think it was another move. It's 1 o'clock, that's why I'm yawning. So, my apologies. There was another one that they would sacrifice themselves and heal the next one up, right? So you can take that and pair it with things like Supreme Overlord, where it says their attack and special attacks are boosted for each of the allies that have been defeated. You could potentially set up the Supreme Overlord sweep in that regard. Not saying it works 100% of the time, but there's a strategy there. You see, that type of knowledge, so you have your favorites, and then this is like the last shot out of the Roman candle, so to speak, right? So there's potential, like I said. But I totally encourage people to get into it, and I totally encourage people to really start enjoying the competitive game if you can. Like if you're a Pokemon player and you're playing for collecting, obviously the metagame's not going to be for you. if you're a Pokemon player and you like the battling, give the metagame a try. You will be pleasantly surprised at how in-depth it really is, because of the amount of actual moves that you can perform on the first turn. Like, you figure, at the very least, maybe in just the top 20 Pokemon used, you're still looking at hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of permutations of what can be used. You have the Protects, the Endures, the other turn priority moves. You have the... I could go into it all, but there's millions of potential first moves. It's kind of like chess. If chess was runaway and kind of like obscene in the number of opening moves. But at any rate, I hope you enjoyed this rather educational video, because I know I did. I was talking about this in the previous videos that I wanted to make this, and then I thought, you know what? I'm going to make it. It might not be the best, and people might want to like rake me over the coals, and that's fine. They can flame me all they want. I don't care. I tried to do my best at explaining every facet of the competitive metagame and what's required to really be in the competitive metagame. And I look forward to seeing more and more people playing Pokemon Champions that comes out in a month plus. And the reason I say that is it's free to get. It's free as far as I know. Free to get, free to play. You get to earn stuff through it. It's available on both phones and Switch, so there's a potential that you could... I hope to see a lot of new people, new faces in it. But at any rate, I hope everybody enjoyed this video, because I know I did. And I hope everybody has a fantastic evening, a wonderful tomorrow, and as always, have a good one.